Hello, and welcome to the Rock Metal Podcast. I am your host, John Harris, and today on the Rock Metal Podcast, we have Avenues. They have a new album called We're All Doomed, which released on November 19th via Wiretap Records. Right now, I'm being joined by Shawn to share some more information about this stellar release, as well as what the boys have got going on. So, Shawn, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Hi, John. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely great to have you on. When the stuff came across my desk, I got super excited because it feels like, and maybe I'm wrong, just from where I'm sitting at my desk in the middle of a pandemic, but it feels like the kind of punk rock music you guys are doing isn't being done right now, and it's refreshing. I dig it. I like it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. A lot of the influences that we've had, especially with this album, was kind of pulling back to, the punk rock style that we liked. Not trying to date ourselves, but, the 90s and early 2000s of kind of that throwback SoCal skate punk that, I think everything got super, super poppy and oversaturated and produced, and we just wanted to throw it back down to our roots, and that's kind of the product that we ended up with.
SoCal skate punks. This is why I was chatting with you, Shawn, because I wouldn't have no idea how to refer to it. Very cool. In the 90s and the early 2000s, and yeah, it kind of just got a little overproduced over time, and I'm trying to think of some, I don't know, Simple Plan, that...
Yeah, your Canadian friends up in the great north of Simple Plan would be one of those that over time definitely got overproduced and super poppy and very radio friendly.
Just a little bit, and yes, of course, because of my Canadian roots, I have to speak about Simple Plan.
Right, and then you had Avril Lavigne just put out a new single with Travis Barker, and that one's fairly overproduced as well. And
yeah, and let's not forget Sum 41.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Sum 41, I think, over time has gotten a little bit better and started to, get back to more of the metal stuff, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. They were always a, metal/punk hybrid of some sorts.
Right. Yeah. Still enjoy listening to them. I think kind of throughout their discography, kind of the middle of the road stuff kind of fell off a little bit for me.
Okay. Well, speaking of falling off the skateboard, but getting back on... I guess the question is, SoCal skate punk, what about it inspired you guys to write a record? And was it easy to stay true, or was it, could you see how it could get easily overproduced and become poppy and you kind of had to stop yourself, or was it pretty easy to do?
We didn't really feel that we struggled with the songwriting aspect or trying to hit to a certain genre or sound. We felt that, everything kind of came naturally, and Vin Smith, who is the lead singer and other guitar player in the band, he's the main songwriter as well. So, it kind of passes us along the ideas, and we'll kind of contribute to them and, have the input that way. But I think everything flowed really nice to kind of stay on point and consistent, where I think in the past, some bands on albums don't sound consistent song to song. I think we got a overarching kind of sound that was very similar to what we're going for. So I didn't think it was too hard for us to stay on task with it.
You did mention in the pre-roll that you have a music degree, so you were like a scientist in a lab creating.
So yeah, Vin is the the songwriter, and I have more of the music theory background, so I understand what's going on. And he's the no, play it here. It sounds good this way, and it's with punk rock makes it easy. Going between 4 or 5 chords, and just really focusing on the technique of the fast downstrokes and things like that.
Okay, so you just mentioned some fast downstrokes, which is some guitar player stuff. Take us through the playing style, I guess, then, that went into crafting either the record or the sound. Because you mentioned, for example, fast downstrokes. So does that mean that you guys put more effort into playing the guitar a certain way?
Correct. So Vin is very heavy on his style of technique, kind of similar to what the Ramones would do way back in the day. So that sound and the technique is just all like heavy palm muting, but all guitar downstrokes. You're not going up and down. So trying to keep that on a click track in the studio, it's a very, very tiring process. But then it also helps everything sound super tight. And that's what we're kind of going for, whether it's live or recorded, that we're not going to be very sloppy, that everything's going to be really locked in. So it's a lot of the technical background with it, playing wise.
Gabba gabba wee. That's going outside of SoCal skate punk though, Shawn. We can't talk about that.
Yeah, start going to the East Coast and the CBGB days.
Well, that brings up something interesting, because you're coming in from, well, I guess what would you call yourself? Because like in Canada, we call the center of the country the prairie. You're coming in from the center of the United States. What do you call that?
The Midwest.
The Midwest, baby. So is there a punk scene that is indicative to the Midwest? Did that ever develop?
I think through like Milwaukee and Chicago, there's always been kind of a thriving punk scene. You look down to Chicago, and that's where you had like Fall Out Boy come out of, and then you also have like the Lawrence Arms, Alkaline Trio, a lot of rad bands that still come out of the Midwest, but I guess don't really get the notoriety of being a California or Los Angeles type of band. So I think it's more of the working class punk.
Yeah, I was going to say, as you mentioned Milwaukee, immediately I thought of Alice Cooper. It has to happen.
Yes.
And then, the other bad boy in town would be Detroit Rock City. So definitely a rock/metal vibe in that town. Two towns.
Right. For sure.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's a good, healthy scene. People come out to the shows, whether, it's summer and it's hot, or, as you're used to it in Canada, all the snow on the ground gives you something to go out and do and get out of the house.
Mm-hmm. Abso-freaking-lutely. Now, I've never been to either of those two cities myself. I have been to Minnesota, lots of snow, very cold. I have been to Chicago, even more snow, and with the wind coming off of, Lake Erie?
Lake Michigan.
Lake Michigan, yeah. Mm-hmm. Woo!
Yeah. Gets pretty chilly, but obviously between climates of Minneapolis and Chicago, it's very similar. I think we're probably a tad bit warmer than Minneapolis. I think they get the Canadian airstream, but yeah, we're very similar.
Cool. Very Devious, very lights out. We're All Doomed. Talk to us about this record as a whole. We're All Doomed. What does that mean? I immediately think of the pandemic. Is it pandemic related?
I wouldn't say. It was more or less written, and the concept kind of came together back in 2017. So we were starting to write the album back then, and obviously we had some issues with Mark, our drummer, getting sick and being in the hospital for about a year, and then studios closing. So we kind of had this, I guess, problem that we're trying to get through to just get this all done. But we kind of came up with the album artwork first, and then kind of had that kind of cool zombie-esque vibe to it, and trying to think of what do we want to call this, and then kind of come up with the concept. So we kind of shut out the idea of one of the songs was called We're All Doomed, so we felt that it'd be kind of cool to take that forward as a concept for the album, and kind of write towards those type of post-apocalyptic type of themes, but also do some of the fun pop punk stuff in between.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm looking at the artwork right now. I'm actually curious if I can download it and then pop it into the stream. By the time I figure all that out, we're going to lose our flow here. But for everybody who's interested, definitely search up Avenues, and the band's website that I have. Just correct me if I'm wrong, Shawn. Is it facebook.com/Avenues MKE? Is that the best place to reach you guys?
Yep. Or on our Bandcamp as well. Okay. And that's, I believe that's Avenues Rock at Bandcamp.
Avenuesrock.bandcamp.com. I love sending people to Bandcamps rather than a Facebook because, well,
there's a bunch of music on there.
Yeah, you can do things with the band on Bandcamp.
Exactly.
Sweet. Okay. So avenuesrock.bandcamp.com. You can check out that artwork as you're listening to the show, and it looks like a comic book. It's super cool. 25 cents for this bad boy. Very cool artwork. Now, maybe you said so, and I was in the middle of thinking about how I might get this picture into the stream, and I wasn't paying attention, and I'm sorry. You and my wife can just, have a thing about me not listening. But how did you find an artist for this? This is incredible.
So the artist, his name is Jeremy Kirk, and he's a tattoo artist here in Milwaukee. So my brother has gotten work done from him in the past. He actually did the album artwork on our last EP from 2015 called Creep Show. So we kind of dug the vibe of that black and white comic book style and wanted to kind of keep that continuity across all the albums kind of moving forward, just to, keep that comic book vibe going. So he was very generous, and everything was hand drawn, so nothing done on a computer. So we have like the one-off piece of art that we had to scan in, and he knocked it out of the park on this one for sure.
Mm-hmm. Abso-freaking-lutely. That's a cool one. Tattoo artists doing artwork for bands and whatnot. And I mean, I guess it's not too terribly surprising, but it's not the first place I would think to go.
Right. I mean, all of us aren't that inclined, I guess, drawing and doing all the computer-based animation or using Photoshop. So, we wanted to get more of a organic, really cool-looking album vibe instead of us trying to paste together some graphics that we found online and then potentially get sued over it later. So, yeah, knowing that he does these awesome tattoos, I think it really kind of translated to obviously just a hand-drawn album cover for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is super-duper cool. Now, in extension to that, is there, because this would be awesome as vinyl, you get that thing big, for the artwork so that people could really have that. And then even as well, because it's black and white, they could color it in.
Oh, yeah. So I haven't thought about it that way of like kind of doing the comic coloring type of a deal, but yeah, on our Bandcamp, I mean, we already had this pressed to T-shirts and sweaters, and then obviously vinyl as well. Wiretap had us sold out on the first run of these, and I believe Spam, our European label, still has some available that you can order online. So hopefully those will be shipping in January. But yeah, the album artwork translated really cool over to having that bigger artwork platform on the 12-inch vinyl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Wiretap is with it, baby. They're on board.
You know it.
The other thing I was thinking, going back to the 90s, the early 2000s, is a CD booklet, having like some crazy CD booklet with lyrics and things, and almost like a continuation of what's going on the front cover, that you get a story that may or may not even be a story, but you kind of loosely can piece something together if you want to.
Right, kind of doing a storyboard, that would have been cool. And it's hard nowadays, like figuring out when you're touring what's going to sell for you. Obviously, we did press the CD, but it was just a very simple four-panel digipack. So we didn't get too crazy with the artwork, but you still have the lyrics in there. And we had one graphic that another friend did that kind of pays homage to Queen, and doing that silhouette image of all the band members in it. But I think going forward next time on the next album, that'd be a pretty rad idea on a CD booklet to finish or continue a comic idea. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing. And I think maybe just I'm asking that question out of nostalgia because you mentioned the 90s, early 2000s. And just last night, I finally sat down and watched that last Blockbuster film on Netflix. And I was not nostalgic for Blockbuster. I will say that. I could have cared less about Blockbuster specifically, but just the idea that before social media, where people were hiding behind a keyboard, we actually had to venture out of the house, interact with other people, spend time to try and find and agree on one movie, and then bring that one movie or two, whatever, back home. And it just made me just so nostalgic for that time period. And then I started thinking about music consumption during that time period. I couldn't just, what do I want to listen to today, and scroll through everything. I had to go to the store, and I may or may not have been able to listen to the CD before I could buy it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Because my wife and I have gotten to many fights at Blockbuster on a Friday, Saturday night trying to pick out a movie that we'd fall asleep or was just a garbage movie to begin with. But I 100% agree with going old school and growing up, going to the record store and not having the ability to really listen to much while you're there. And just, I would buy albums solely on the artwork. So I'd kind of get into whether it was the metal categories or the punk genre area. And you start flipping through and, if something caught my eye, I just buy it and hope for the best and hope that I didn't waste my, $10 to $20, depending on what it was.
Depending on where in the 90s you were at.
Yeah, if it was like a Sam Goody, then I think a CD was like, what, $25 or something stupid?
Yeah, or go to that Glorious Tower Records.
Yep.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. But that brings up a good point. Choosing an album based on artwork, and kind of our conversation has been swinging a bit to taking the time, that even if it's just a digital release, taking the time to have incredible artwork.
Mm-hmm. You got to have the ability to catch someone's eye and draw them in versus, trying to just have a single or, taking it that people are just going to listen to the music and putting something out there. But if you have something that's captivating and catches your eye, it kind of draws you in a lot quicker to it.
Mm-hmm. What I'm going to call the standard Spotify effect or whatever. You're just going to have a stock Getty image photo and then a font over it with your song title and call it a day.
Right.
Not here at Avenues, baby.
Nope, we put a little bit more effort into it.
Mm-hmm. It looks like we got a couple of videos here. Devious and Lights Out.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, those are two singles off the album We're All Doomed. Devious we put out last year, obviously kind of set on the album while we're going through the pandemic. And this past October, we released Lights Out. So we had the same guy actually do both videos for us. And I thought they turned out pretty well, and we're really happy with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Devious, is that kind of more of like a lyric video?
Correct. It was an animated lyric video, and that came out roughly before like the 2020 election and going through that. So we had some, undertones of what was kind of being politically charged in the U.S. About social justice reform and kind of, banding together and working together type of a message to go with it. And Eric Arsenault is the one that did it for us, and we thought he knocked it out of the park with how he animated and put the lyrics in and made it really kind of a nice cohesive piece for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, how very punk of you guys to get involved in politics, but I mean, geez Louise, even coming from
weird.
Yeah. Even coming from Canada, peeking over the fence, I was like, what's going on over there, huh?
It's like, oh, those idiots.
Just keep it over there, eh?
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then Lights Out, I'm watching right now. It looks like, is this like band rehearsal footage, or like what is this that you guys have spliced in here?
So that's my basement, kind of like my studio's live space or practice space that we have, and Eric was able to obviously take some live clips and then mash that in with some old classic like monster horror movies to just kind of make a fun piece, kind of more to the theme of like a Halloween and October type of thing. So it doesn't really follow suit with like the meaning of the song per se, but just a fun video overall to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, spending some time in Shawn's basement.
Yep, it's always a good time.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the downstrokes. We got all the downstrokes. Actually, let's talk about that Les Paul that I just saw for a second. There's a Les Paul, and it looks like it has different kind of pickups than the other one does, and I'm lost on the name of it for a second. Maybe.
So if you're talking about the one I'm playing, that's my Les Paul Gold Top, and the pickups in that one are P90s. So it's a single coil.
Yes.
Versus Vin's Les Paul Custom that's going to have a standard like humbucker in there.
Mm-hmm. Take us through the P90s.
P90s, I think Vin and I both started on Les Paul Juniors when we started the band and kind of progressed through different renditions of them. And Vin recently got that Les Paul Custom that he's got that back. That was kind of his childhood guitar. And that's another story we'll say for another time. It's a little long-winded. But the P90 sound, that's just that single coil, breaks up real quick, still has a thickness, in my opinion, that like a humbucker would, but still just bites, and put that through a 50-watt tube amp, it just screams, and it's for us the holy grail of tone.
You said everything that I enjoy. It's like if I were going to a restaurant, or like, well, tell me about this restaurant, and you just said what you just said, but it was like about food. I'm sold. Take me there.
Done.
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds like a winning recipe.
Yeah, because it's funny. I've never played. I'm a guitar player, but I've never played on P90s. I've just kind of like heard about them. I've seen them occasionally. I've kind of always wondered, like, so it's like a slightly bigger single coil than like a Fender or something.
Correct. And they're still, tend to be a little noisy, so that's the issue. But, compared to like a normal single coil that you'll find in a Stratocaster or anything, it's got some more balls than what you'll have on that.
We like the balls, huh?
Yep.
Beautiful. Speaking of balls, take us through the studio setup you got. Is this where the record was recorded, tracked, demoed?
So what in the background is my home studio. So this is just for practice and, my side hustle of recording friends' bands and such. The studio that we finished recording in was called the Exchange Recording Complex, and that's here in Milwaukee. And it has some fame of David Bowie spending some time there way back in the 70s. So it was kind of cool to go into, a nice studio that's fairly old, but still has all the vintage gear. And, that's what we like, trying to produce sounds instead of everything being digital direct in. We want to make analog type of recordings just to give that thickness and a warmer sound to what we're doing.
So you got your P90s that have got balls, and you shove that into the old vintage equipment, and you just... Guys, this is good. So take us through what kind of remarkable vintage equipment that you never thought you would use ended up on the record.
I would probably attest that to Kevin's outboard gear. I know he's had some vintage compressors and preamps, using those older style things for the outboard gear worked really well for us on the sound. Won't joke around about talking about vintage Pro Tools versions and how old all that gets.
We use Pro Tools 1, man.
Yep. But it's, using the hybrid of the vintage outboard analog, compressors and preamps, and then, getting that into a Pro Tools rig really works wonders. To be versatile, to be able to edit and still get the sound that you're going for without being overly sterile.
Actually sounds like a really funny meme, though. Guys, I got it set up, and it's like a computer from 1993. I got it going.
Taking your cassette tape and recording to a boombox.
And then miking the boombox.
Yep.
Speakers within speakers. Did you guys record to tape at all?
Not on this record. That'd be fun to do. And we've always talked about it, and it takes a lot of work to do, and just really, at the same time, it's probably a little bit quicker because everyone's playing at the same time. And, in previous bands, I've definitely done analog tape, and it's definitely an experience being able to take the CD and then listen to the analog tape side by side. You can really hear a difference, but it's becoming a kind of a dying thing, trying to find studios and engineers that still do analog tape. Yeah. Or even in the past, having someone that would record everything through Pro Tools digitally, and then would put the master out to 2-inch tape, trying to add that tape saturation at the very end to see if that actually did anything. So was it worth it? It's hard to say.
Yeah. I've been in a couple of studios where they did that in plug-in format, and sometimes it benefits the recording, sometimes it really doesn't benefit the recording at all.
Exactly. And over the years, I think plugins have gotten a lot better. And I know through, say, Pro Tools and Waves, like their tape saturation plugins, they sound pretty cool. But, are you just adding unnecessary hiss and saturation versus, trying to achieve that more naturally and analog?
Yeah. Speaking of Pro Tools, they got the Heat. I think they still have Heat, which... is like saturation native to Pro Tools that can be applied to each channel, and called Heat.
I've seen that listed in some of the Pro Tools options that I've used, but I've never used it personally to have that background with it. But I'll have to check it out because I have seen it listed before through all my Pro Tools stuff. So
sweet. Okay, so we've chatted about SoCal skate punk. We chatted about the 90s. We chatted about the 2000s. We chatted about downstrokes on guitar. We chatted about choosing an album based on artwork. We chatted about Milwaukee, Alice Cooper, Detroit Rock City, P90s, vintage gear. We also chatted about the record We're All Doomed, which is out now via Wiretap Records. We chatted that you guys started working on that about 2017. Mm-hmm. And it was a few trials and tribulations between then and now.
Yeah, it definitely was a process and a learning experience. And as I mentioned previously, we started the album back in 2017 in Chicago at Atlas Studios, working with Matt Allison, who did Creep Show for us, which was our past EP. So we had the drums all done, kind of tracked up, demoed, ready to go. And then, Mark goes back home to Texas, and all of a sudden we find out that he's in the hospital and had to go through some crazy medical procedures that kind of kept him in the hospital for almost over a year. So after that, he decided to finally move up to Milwaukee, which was awesome for us. But at that time, Atlas Studios had closed down. So it kind of gave us, while Mark was healing, time to rewrite the album to be a little bit more relevant and kind of focus on the songwriting. So, we had that happen. Finding the new studio, which was the Exchange Recording Complex, as I mentioned, taking the year to record there, get it almost finished, and then COVID hits, and then we're left with, finishing up some vocal tracks at home to send over and finally get it mixed, and then you're sitting on a product for, I think we're probably sitting on this since last March, waiting to release and, get the vinyl done. So I'm sure, as you know, vinyl lead times are crazy long right now too, that it's, I think we put the order in March and we're expected to get them in January. So any band that's looking to do it now, you got almost a year to wait to get a vinyl out.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a dream guitar that I had. I was talking to a band. I loved their guitar. I looked it up. And if I place the order now, Shawn, I wouldn't get it until at least next May.
Wow.
The whole supply chain is just completely...
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I have in process, too, a custom guitar being built. And I think I'm almost 2 years waiting for it. But same type of thing. You got one guy in a shop that's got all these orders coming in and, through closures, COVID. So it's, at the same time, you don't want to rush it. But, when you spend the money, you want to have it and have the gratification right away of being able to play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Groovy. Speaking of gratification, this has been fantastic. Is there anything that I missed, Shawn?
No, I think you hit it all on the head, and definitely appreciate the time you spent to talk about the album. And again, it's out on Bandcamp or through Wiretap. Obviously, the U.S. vinyl pre-sales are sold out, but Spam, our European label, still has them. So pick up a copy, pre-order, buy the digital, or buy a CD. We have it all available.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the Rock Metal Podcast today, Shawn.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, John.